I think what we're going to do at the moment is move off and go and have a look for something else exciting to watch. It's been fun with these hyena. I'm very, very glad that the female that was attacked yesterday seems to be in perfect health. I'm very happy to see that the cubs, there's nothing wrong with the cubs and they're just as boisterous as they were before. And I'm also happy to see that there's more than one hyena here at the moment, which shows that there's a good family bond still happening and they all look healthy. Interestingly, I was awake this morning at about 2:30 and I bumped into a hyena inside of our camp. And obviously he was taking a chance by walking quite boldly into a camp that only has one entrance and one exit, and trying to scavenge for whatever she could of leftovers. Our camp at the moment with Scott and Brent filled with individuals who have got lots of experience in the bush and have developed a healthy respect for hyena over the years. I personally think that hyena are some of the most dangerous animals in the bush, something that we have to respect greatly. Unlike lion and unlike leopard, it's quite rare for them to walk into a camp, hyena will, without fear, walk directly into the middle of a staff village. And for that reason, I see them as being one of the most dangerous animals to have around a camp. It's not uncommon to hear of stories of hyena biting people quite badly who fall asleep with their doors open, or fall asleep in chairs around fires. So they're quite timid. For all their danger, the hyenas are easily scared off, and all he did was skedaddle out of the campsite last night. And then Diane from Austin said that around about 4:20 this morning there was calling around Juma Dam. The hyena was vocalizing around the dam, probably the same individual. And she would have been vocalizing, or he would have been vocalizing. He would have been vocalizing to talk basically about, or to talk to the rest of their clan. I'm here, this is where I am, I'm healthy, I'm happy, or I'm upset, whatever message she was trying to convey. And it would have been answered. Usually hyenas answer one another, even if we can't hear it. And it was one of the reasons we decided to come to the den site this morning. It seemed like everyone was getting back together. You're welcome. Good morning, Tom. Tom, out of Holland, has asked a question: would male lion actively hunt hyena, or is it just a big fight when they meet one another? Hyena and male lion seem to have a hatred of one another. I don't know if it comes from the fact that a lot of lion cubs are eaten by hyena. Hyena will actively search out and kill lion cubs whenever they can. I got a feeling it's just because lion are more difficult to kill when they're adults, and so they're just eliminating competition later on. And this inbred fear, or this programmed fear, manifests itself in adult lion who are the top dogs in the bush. But I have seen male lions actively hunt and kill hyena not in the same way that they'd hunt a buffalo by stalking and, you know, but definitely they don't back down from an encounter with a hyena and will go out of their way to try and catch and kill one. Equally, male lion who are old or injured are often harassed and abused quite badly by hyena. Very often old male lion who have been injured during pride takeovers are then killed subsequently by hyena. So there's definitely massive animosity between the two. There's definitely they go out of their way to kill one another whenever they can, whenever the odds are stacked in their favor. Do they live mutually exclusive from one another? No. The male lions who call this place home, as much as what the hyenas who call this place home, all live in the same neighborhood. The lions that have grown up in this area are intimately familiar with the hyena, and the hyena that grew up in this area are intimately familiar with the lion. And this stretches across generations. And because the area we're in at the moment was never anything else except a wilderness area, it was never farms that have been reclaimed, it always, forever has been a wilderness area, you find that the lineage here might go back thousands, even tens of thousands of years. Lions hunting hyena, hyena hunting lion. Never-ending power struggle. All over resources. They all eat the same food, even though they fill slightly different ecological niches. Essentially, they're all after the same resource. And at the top of a trophic pyramid, where predators they're at the top of their trophic pyramid, energy acquisition is difficult. Take giraffe and trees, for instance. It seemed that there'd be an abundance of food for a giraffe and a tree, but not that many. There are definitely more trees than giraffe. Equally so, there are definitely more giraffe than there are lion and hyena. And that's simply because there isn't enough energy at that level to sustain massive amounts of lion or hyena. There would be no balance if there was. Quite devious, but I find these animals fantastic. And in African traditional folklore, hyenas are seen to be magical. This individual seems to have had enough of the den and is now going to move off. Now, although you don't see hyena walking around in the day or very often, they have this most amazing ability to just appear at kills and in the most bizarre places at any time of the day. And you quite often, when you're walking around in the bush, startle them lying up underneath bushes. They definitely get around. I think that's going to be our cue. We're going to move on. Hyena have been exceedingly generous in showing us a portion of their lives this morning. For those of you just joining us, you're welcome to send through questions on Twitter at #SafariLive, or you can email questions at WildEarth.tv, and we'll try our best to answer as many questions as we can while we're trying to find you something else to look for. It never fails to amaze me, these spider webs. They're quite difficult to see, but because of the mist we've got this morning, we've been gifted with this look of a tropical tent web spider. Now, she's lying in what they call negative geotaxis, which is a massively complicated word for me. But basically what it means is she's in the middle of her web, she's upside down, in the middle of that shiny, silvery, massive web close to the bottom. The rest of the web, everything above it, are called entanglement lines. They're not sticky silk. Basically what it is, it's there to entangle and entrap an animal, which forces the animal to fall between those lines into the net or the tent at the bottom. She then, from the bottom of the web and quite safe away from kicking spines and biting mandibles, will strike and envenomate her prey. She then draws the prey through the bottom of the web, and she'll eat it at the bottom, discarding whatever she doesn't want to eat on the edges of the web, quite often leaving these grim trophies. She doesn't seem to have too much though. Creatures to insects, all through the animal world you find silk. Spiders have got a particularly, or have developed a particularly pretty way of utilizing silk. They spin it out of spinnerets. It's a liquid, comes out of a gland, or several glands in actual fact, 7 different types of silk get produced by these glands, and they can be mixed, repels the web. I'm not too sure what this particular spider does not to get caught in a web, but I'm sure that hanging upside down just by her feet stops most of that. So tropical tent web spider, the name given to her is from the circus tent-like structure that you're seeing there in that silvery mass. Awesome. Where I was scraping, don't know if it'll come out that clear, but you'll see that it's white and black. This is called the zebra wood. Are we battling slightly?
Battling there, possibly it's the camera operator.
But it's the zebra wood nevertheless, and it gets its name from the black and white stripes that the wood is marbled with. A fantastic wood to work furniture from and to make fires from, in actual fact, because it's so hard. Behind it, and slightly out of focus, is the softest wood we find out here, and that is a cork wood. And apart from the leaves being browsed by some animals, nothing much happens at all with this tree. Leaves and the berries are used, but the wood itself is so light and so porous as to be almost useless. So one of the hardest, and the softest trees growing right next to one another. It never fails to amaze me that out of the same patch of sand, basically, you get trees that exhibit such different qualities to one another. They use the same sunlight, they have the same water, they have the same minerals, and yet two completely different trees. I said, to this day, so well done to everybody who had a shot to trying to answer my question posed to you about what the spider eats. We've had answers ranging from moths bugs, butterflies, grasshoppers, bees. And in a way, you're almost all right because spiders will catch almost anything. But that particular spider is geared to catch insects that hop and fly and land on branches. Those incredibly strong entanglement snares are there to catch incredibly strong prey and to immobilize it while she bites from the bottom. Now, the only insects that exhibit that particular type of behavior out here are locusts and grasshoppers. So she doesn't catch the biggest locusts, but she definitely, for the type of web that she gets, catches locusts. That's what she catches. So well done to all of you that had grasshopper or locust. That's the right answer. You're welcome. So well done to Maggie and Eric. You had it right. Congratulations. It was actually quite a difficult question. Well done. Go right here. That's affirmative. Just, would you mind just going to the lock again? Thank you. One weaver's nest at the moment, approaching twin dams. I'm going to be approaching from the south. Okay folks, I think what we're going to do is we're going to try and pick up the pace a little bit. Our teammates that have been finding and losing and finding and losing that leopard have found him walking on a road not too far away from us at the moment. And what we're going to try and do is make our way into the area. Hopefully he doesn't go into the thick bush that's typical of that particular area of this reserve. And we'll see if we can get to see it. Copy that, no problem. So I'm hearing that there's quite a lot of chatter on Twitter concerning what the Lions were up to with the buffalo last night. And please excuse me for not filling you in a little bit earlier. But the buffalo were heading in an easterly direction last night out of Juma's property into a neighboring property. They were picked up this morning without the Lions in tow. And at the moment, they haven't been able to relocate the Lions. So that says one of a couple of things to me. Either the Lions have caught a buffalo and are busy eating it, and the guides just haven't found it just yet. Or what's happened is the Lions have lost interest, or the buffalo have moved out of their territory, and they were unable to follow. The buffalo had moved out of their territory into a different Lion's territory. So at the moment, the buffaloes seem pretty unfazed. They are in a different property, in a neighboring property, one that we don't have access to. And the lions, we've got a couple of guys that are following up on their tracks. Seem to have also left our traversing area. But not to worry, these things change daily, they're about an hour. And until we know conclusively where the cats are, rule out the possibility of just around the next bend. So you'll notice an narrow straight road that we're busy driving on at the moment. It's a road that's used as a fire break in the Sabi Sand. As you can imagine, in a wilderness area the size that we have, fires, runaway fires at least, pose an incredibly big risk to people's lives and property. And arrow straight roads like this are the easiest way of maintaining effective control of these fires. Last night, come and have a look out for runaway fires. Quite often I've worked right through the night fighting fires. They start this time of the year. It's a danger all the way until the first rains. The first really big rains happened in September, October. It's something that we all quite alert for out here is fire. And also is a handy highway for us to make our way into where our colleagues have spotted this leopard. As some of you have no doubtedly picked up, it's my maiden game drive for WildEarth today. And although I've been doing or have done tens of thousands of game drives in my time, it always is exciting to be on a new property and working with a new team. I must be honest, one of the best experiences that I've had in a long time. Saw the animal. We're going to be making our way into this area and seeing if we can use our Scott-Nice combined skill to draw this cat out of the grass. Luckily for us, the area where they lost him was very thick, so keeping our eyes peeled We're going to be using all of our senses. Leopard definitely disturb the bush as they move through it. And if we're lucky, his presence is going to be given away by a francolin or a prey species of some sort. I got you, dude. Saw in our view a few seconds ago, the road was a little bit too thick, the bush was a bit too thick. Good morning.
Morning, guys.
How are you? Fine, and you?
Sorry for bumping into your side there, Dave. Please, yeah?
That's okay.
Alright, I'm gonna go around. I'll let you guys know if I relocate him on that side.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for the help. As you can see, we definitely maintain good relationships with our teammates out here. We're all part of, as you said, the larger guiding community, and we've all got people that would love to see what we can show them. Very important part of our work out here. Teamwork. As you can see, the bush here is very thick, typical of leopard. Your message, Stefan? Copy that, thank you. I think what we're going to do is we're going to switch off here for a little bit, and we're just going to use our senses to listen to the bush around us. To drive around bashing through the bush is going to make a bit of noise. While we're doing that, I see Scott has picked up on a really big female golden orb web spider who's doing some running maintenance and repair to her web. Fantastic. You can see a male next to the leaf, on the right hand side of the leaf above her, there's a male. He's roughly, or can be, up to 1,000 times smaller than what she is. And there's a very, very good reason for that. If he was any bigger and he made a mistake in her web, she'd think he was food and she'd eat him up. So he avoids being food by being so small as to be below her notice. And in that way can sneak up on her and mate with her without her eating him. You can see she's very elaborately sticking her silk in a pinwheel fashion around herself. It's called an orb web. And this particular spider web goes golden in the sunlight, and that's where they get their name from, the golden orb web spider. One of the largest web spinning spiders we have out here. To give you some idea of how big she is, with her legs spread out, she would be as big as my hand. Doing some maintenance on her web.
Let me try to get onto it.
So Scott can see a big male bushbuck.
And the elephant's in the background, but it is very thick.
Elephant in the background and a bushbuck with a squirrel that's calling in this area. Now, the elephant, the leopard obviously won't hunt, but the bushbuck most definitely is in the prey range of a young male leopard. And with the squirrel that's making these calls, I don't hear the squirrel anymore. But everything is leading me to believe that this leopard is actually still in the area, which is a good thing. Now, the grass is relatively high, probably about waist height. In actual fact, if I were to give it some perspective for you. Got alarm calls of bushbuck around us. That noise that you're hearing there.
Oh, here comes a leopard, it's right behind it.
We've just got the leopard, he's just been running after that bushbuck. You may or may not have seen a flash of color as the bushbuck came behind the car. Leopard was definitely hunting the bushbuck. Unfortunately, he missed. So we're just going to give him just 2 seconds to calm down. After having just used that amount of energy and the bushbuck making the alarm call, this leopard definitely feels out of place at the moment. It's not uncommon. I don't just want to barrel down onto him. But he looks calm. And you know what, guys? That's what it takes to find cats out here. Now, leopard are only actually successful 20% of the time, so it's actually not uncommon that he missed that bushbuck. Here we have the cat we came here to find. It is a young animal. Now, being new onto the property, I know that there are 2 young male leopard on this property, Quinuma and Quarantine. And as far as I know, this particular place that we're at, in the southeastern corner of the reserve, Quarantine enjoys this particular area. That's a beautiful shot of his face there. For those of you who are adept at using the spot patterns of these animals to identify them, and for those of you that are new to leopard ID, the spot patterns that you're seeing on the face, in particular above the whiskers and behind the nose, are like a fingerprint. Now, he looks a bit hungry, I must be honest with you. His belly is a little bit hollow. He doesn't look in bad condition, not at all. What a fantastic animal. Bushbuck still barking away behind us. I'm going to turn our vehicle around. I'm going to follow him. Being a bit hungry, he's not skinny, but being a bit hungry, he will hunt a little bit deeper into the day than he would normally do if he was full. They've got quite a high metabolic rate. Leopard need to eat on average every 3 to 4 days, but do eat actually on average only once every 10 to 12 days. Can you believe it? That's on average over a whole year. Leopard and lion have been researched in the Kruger National Park for decades, and some crazy researchers have collared and follow around leopard pretty much daily in some areas of the reserve, 24 hours a day for months at a time. Stations, we've relocated this young male. Ingwe, he's mobile north of Mamba on the western side of the drainage line. Good. with your message. So we've just got an update on Twitter, and thank you very, very much for your help. Is that we've positively So some of you who are a bit new to leopard biology might be wondering how, of all the leopard that we could be seeing in an area, we know that this could be one of two cats. And it's because leopard are quite territorial. Now, he's a young cat. He hasn't really... There's another bushbuck. Same bushbuck that he keeps on hunting. I wonder if there's not two leopard in this area. Because the bushbuck are coming from in front of us and from a different area, not next to where we've got... I'm wondering if there's not another predator in this area that's contributing to the confusion that these bushbuck are seeing. Now, it's not common to see bushbuck in this area. They're actually quite rare to see. Here we go, bushbuck, jumping. Very, very close to where we last saw quarantine. An adult male bushbuck like that is a formidable foe. They're not the easiest things to take down. They're incredibly powerful. You saw those big horns, incredibly sharp, needle-tipped. And quarantine, being a young cat, may not have the courage just yet to tackle a full-grown bushbuck, full-grown male bushbuck. Hence, the lack of conviction that we're seeing from him to chasing it down. Now, the last time I saw him, he was in that bush on the right-hand side of your screen, probably 50 feet from where we are right now. I've got a funny feeling he's probably gone to ground there. Leopard have a tendency just to go down into a preemptive strike pose, which is on their haunches, quite low down. I didn't want to get involved in the hunt, which is why I switched off the car and we just stopped. We in no way want to try and influence a hunt in either way, either in the bushbuck's favor or in the leopard's favor. The bushbuck has moved off across the drainage line. We're definitely getting more alarm calls of bushbuck all around us. So my gut feel still tells me that we've got more than one cat in this area. Now, with the bushbuck having moved away from this leopard, and typically leopard only really hunting anywhere from about 5 to 30 meters, I'm fairly certain that we won't be influencing any hunting. We're going to try and pick him up again before we lose him. Now, with another predator potentially being in this area, it might be confusing him a little bit. I know it's certainly confusing us as to where all the chaos is coming from. So he's definitely not in this little bush where we left him, which is not unexpected. Leopard can perform these most amazing stunts of disappearing. Right under your nose, basically. But this is where we last saw him. The bushbuck ran off in this direction here. And I think what we're going to do is try and find the bushbuck, hopefully with leopard in tow. This is the direction that the bushbuck took off in. Bushbuck, as their name suggests, enjoy using whatever cover they can. It's very difficult for us to drive inside there. So I'm going to go to where we've got bushbuck. The bushbuck is in front of us, and a nyala. So we've got a male bushbuck and some nyala. Nyala, although nyala will feature in the prey of leopard, definitely the bushbuck is what he'd probably be aiming at. That nyala is a little bit too big for him. That nyala is probably weighing in at roughly 100 kilograms. Whereas that young male leopard was probably no more than 30 or 40 kilograms. The stations, we've lost visual of this. My daughter Ingwe, last seen mobile north, away from Mamba. That's a bull nyala that you were just having a look at over there. Horns, female nyala don't have horns, and they're also a more rusty color. The bushbuck that we saw was in front of the nyala. Now, only thing that I'm seeing around is Franklin. I'm fairly certain that this young male leopard went into this very thick drainage line on my right hand side. I'm going to see if we can't follow where those nyala came from. Through there's the bushbuck. You can see bushbuck's making his way back actually where he came from. What we'll do, see if we can just switch off a little bit. It worked for us once. There's no reason to believe why it won't work for us again. He is obviously quite hungry. There are animals in the prey weight size that he has right here. There's a lot of cover. I have no doubt that he's still in the area. I can hear another squirrel giving an alarm call. Have a look there. Find him for us again, and with a bit of luck, pinpoint where he is. So the natural instinct is to want to drive around in here and crash everywhere and go and have a look for this and go and have a look for that. But basically what the bush is telling us right now, and this is what you actually got to listen to, the bush is telling us that there's something disturbing some squirrels in front of us. They only call it predators. We've got prey species of animals around us for leopard. the bushbuck. We've got a young male leopard in this area who's hungry. We've got decent cover in the form of a drainage line on our right-hand side. There's nothing that's telling us that he's moved off. Everything's telling us just to sit tight and have a little bit of patience, even though I must be honest, I'm the same as you. I just want to start the car and drive around. We're just going to fight that urge just for a little bit.
I can see the Nyala seems to be following the same course as the bushbuck.
So the Nyala, Scott has seen, are coming along the same track that the bushbuck is coming on. In other words, right back to where they were originally. Tension that we're feeling is delicious at the moment, I must be honest with you. There just seems to be an energy around here. So thank goodness these animals are not tame and don't do what you think they're going to do. Otherwise, we'd have very boring lives out here. But now we need to decide what we're going to do. Either we've got a choice to go and have a look what that squirrel's shouting at, which my gut feel tells me is another predator. Or we need to just stick to this drainage line where we lost him and see if he isn't lying up here somewhere. What do you think?
Or the elephant.
Or the elephant.
Too many options.
Too many options. Okay. So it's an easy choice actually. Let's hear if we can hear that squirrel still. The squirrel's gone silent. The bushbuck has walked straight past where we last saw Quarantine, and therefore he's probably not there. I do think that he's still in this area though. So everyone, I think what we're going to try and do is going to have a look. I can't hear that squirrel anymore, so to try and find one squirrel in one tree in this thick bush is going to be very, very difficult. I think what we're going to do is we're going to go and have a look and see if we can relocate those elephant, which are in exactly the same area, and hear if something else doesn't spook away from Quarantine, and it'll give us a precise pinpoint place to start looking from. It worked very well for us the last time. Couple of minutes ago, for those of you who are just joining us, we stopped next to some bushbuck in an area some of our colleagues had seen a male leopard, and out of the grass exploded the bushbuck and exploded the leopard in tow. He missed the bushbuck, but he followed them across the road, and there was nothing suggesting that he was giving up the hunt. We're now with the bushbuck. They've walked around us, and we have lost the leopard in this very, very thick bush around us. We're on the edge of a drainage line, which limits our movement to this side. It's way too steep for us to drive down. So we're going to make our way back onto the road. We're going to see if we can find those elephant that are not too far away from here, and have a look at them, and at the same time just listen to the bush around us to see if he has another go at that bushbuck. I'm sorry that it was so brief. I'm very glad to say that we got to see a hunting sequence like we did. It was very exciting for the time that we had with him. And I'm glad to see that he's looking in such good condition, barring a bit of an empty belly, which I'm sure for leopard won't stay that way for too long. They have an incredibly wide prey range, ranging from fish through insects. I've even seen a male leopard jump onto a giraffe. Of course, he would never be able to kill it, but he took a chance in any case. As amazing as that sounds. Quarantine, it always helps when you know what animal you're looking for, especially when it comes down to leopards. They are creatures of habit, and you build up an understanding of their personalities, for lack of a better word. And I say that very lightly. There's a danger of some anthropomorphism when you're talking about animals that you get to know from young cubs through to adulthood. They're not human, but they definitely do have habits. In front of us are those nyala. No sign of any leopard around here. Where the separation between bull and cow of the species and ram and ewe happened. This is a nyala bull, but the females are ewes, which is uncommon. Normally you have either a bull and a cow or a ram and a ewe. These are bulls. They're fully mature. You know they're fully mature. You have a look at their horns. The tips of their horns are white. I'll show you in a second. There we go. And you'll notice that those white tips, when seen together, are parallel with one another. When the horn tips point towards one another, they are juvenile. When they point away from one another, they past their prime. So these are two bull nyala in their prime. Prime bulls. These guys will be vying for females. They'll be vying for the attention of females during the breeding season. It's not their time to breed at the moment, which is why they're not in attendance with females. But these are two beautiful specimens of a fully mature prime nyala bull. Most animals, when you think about two males being with one another, why aren't they fighting? But subtly they actually are with one another. This nyala bull is standing side on to us, and you'll notice that that crest of hair that he's got surrounds his entire body. So from his head, the back of his head, all the way down the base of his spine, to his tail, onto his belly, up his neck again. And that is, he can erect those hairs, make himself look much bigger and much more impressive. You can see that he almost wants to, but it's not quite, making that crest on his back stand up. And that's because it's not the breeding season at the moment. There's no reason for him to get super angry. Most animals with horns that sharp will avoid fighting with one another if at all possible. And standing, it's called in piloerection, when they have the crest of hair on their body, standing up, standing side on with one another, posturing. It's a way for them to assert dominance over the smaller bulls, a way for breeding bulls to stand up. Now, you won't believe it, but we've got an elephant literally 40 yards in front of us, moving quieter through the bush than these two Nyala are. You'll see coming into the picture in those green bushes in front of us is a fully grown elephant. You'll see him stick his head out of the bushes in a second. You can just see his leg in the middle of the screen right now is that straight line that you're looking at there. Mother Nature very rarely has straight lines. And there we have, voila. You're looking at a 4-ton animal standing in a bush that wouldn't have hidden this Land Rover. Incredible. So let's go around and have a look at this Ellie a little bit better. Lifting up his trunk difficulty with Scott and I crashing through the bush after quarantine a couple of minutes ago. We managed to kick off a wire, and as robust as what we try and make these systems, unfortunately wires are wires, and there was a loose connection, so we lost you there for a second. But we haven't been totally without hope. We're still with those two young bull elephant that we were with a second or two ago. They're just behind the bush on our left-hand side, and we're going to be going, there we go, these the youngsters, two males. As I was saying just before we lost you, I know they're males because of the domed forehead that they have in profile. Females have a very angular forehead. These are two youngsters. They're definitely not as big as what they could be, although they're still very big. We're looking at about 3 ton here. 2 ton, 2.5, 3 tons. Hello there. So these young guys, quite often at this age, they're like older teenagers, and I always like to liken them to teenagers in a shopping center with a family. They have to be at the shopping center because they want the ice cream mommy's going to buy, but they don't want to walk with you. So these guys are in attendance to a herd. There must be a breeding herd somewhere. They're not old enough to be on their own just yet, but they will be on the periphery. And as such, they look like they're on their own, but they're not. So these young guys can be quite, or have a lack of confidence. They can be quite nervous. And you'll notice that that blowing noise that he just did to us was just an indication of their nerves. They're not scared of us. As you can see, they're still eating. It's a very good sign when elephants are still eating around you. The flapping of the ears has got nothing to do with aggression. It's got mostly to do with just keeping them cool. Elephants pump all their blood in their body through their ears. By flapping them, it cools the blood down and sends it back into the body a little bit cooler. And for warm-blooded animals, you must maintain a set body temperature. It's vital that they have, these large animals have that ability. Now have a look at the bottom of his trunk. You'll notice on the left-hand side, it's a discolored compared to the right-hand side. You may or may not have noticed that. And that's because elephants show dimorphism in their action that they eat, similar to the way humans are left or right-handed. This elephant is right. You'll see that when he crops the grass, he will always twirl the grass onto the right-hand side of his trunk. What he's doing there is just getting rid of pieces of grass that are not nutritious and sand before he puts it in his mouth. See those fine hairs on his chin? They're not beards. Well, I suppose they are beards, but they are there to help feel what he's putting into his mouth. His eyes point towards the tip of his trunk, not forward like we'd think. He's actually looking at the ground there. His trunk is very sensitive on those two lobes at the bottom of his trunk. He knows exactly what he's picking up. Sense of smell is good. And then he has all these sensory organs. I love the way they do that. So you'll notice the way he curls his trunk around the grass. This particular elephant will curl it that way around the grass every single time. And that's what gives the elephant on the right-hand side that distinctive discoloration. It's just all the vegetable juices that have stained his trunk there. A trunk is an extension of his top lip and his nose. Now, unlike us, where we can breathe through our mouth or our nose, an elephant can only breathe through their nose. They can't breathe through their mouth. Their mouth is only joined to their tummy and their trunk is only joined to their lungs. Enjoying some grass this late in the season. This is one of the last times, or one of the last months I should say, not times, one of the last months they'll be eating a lot of grass. They'll gradually be shifting their diet from grass to woody species, so trees and roots, over the next couple of months. In summertime, 80% or so of their diet is made up of of grass. In winter, about 80% of their diet is made up of wood and roots, bark and sticks. See if he flaps his ear. See into his ear hole that sits in front of his ear? That's where his eardrum lies. And an elephant's brain lies directly between the two ears. And you can see the thickness of skull between the front of his head and the ears is an indication of how thick the elephant's skull is. That's all bone. It's a honeycombed bone. And by that I mean it's got all these liquid-filled chambers in it. And it acts as a massive shock absorber. And by shock absorber, when elephants are fighting with one another, bull elephant at some of the most titanic battles that you can get when they're fighting for females, they'll bash heads with one another, running at one another. You need these thick skulls to protect their brains. And elephant bulls also push down a lot of trees. And they need that spongy bone in the front of their head to help cushion blows against trees. Have a look at this. See the ears open? He's trying to make himself look bigger. He's just trying to intimidate us. Not seriously. He wants to cross the road. Beautiful. He's probably going to give us a little bit of a head shake. There we go. You're a big boy. You know, with elephants, you always got to make them feel like they're big. It definitely helps smooth relations. That head up, ears out is just a way of him trying to make himself look big and scary. You'll notice that he's still eating. That tells me that he's not angry. His tail isn't cocked to the side. That's an indication of discomfort. That's why I'm not reversing as fast as I can away from these guys. And there they move off on their day. Elephants always look like they're wearing baggy pajamas when they're walking off. Elephants are hindgut fermented. And by that I mean their digestive system is such that they can really take a lot of nutrients out of the grass and out of bushes of a variety of different quality types. They don't necessarily only have to eat the best quality food that's available. Their digestive system is geared to taking nutrition out of any type of food. And because of that, they've got a digestion that requires constant input. Food is constantly going in and constantly coming out. And although their digestive system can take nutrients out of almost anything, it's quite inefficient at taking all the nutrients out of what they're eating. Hence, the need to just eat and eat and eat. They spend, in this time of the year, 16 to 20 hours a day eating, which is a lot, actually, considering. Go right ahead. A young bull elephant like this will be in association for the herd for a few more years, and then they move off in search of bachelor herds. You very often find young bulls a little bit older than this joining very old bulls, and their wanderings take them very far from the natal range that they have. And that's an important thing, because you don't want young bull elephant being in a position to reproduce with their sisters and their moms, if at all possible. And these wanderings, following around old bull elephants who are not part of the mating bulls. You see that cocktail that he's got there? So it was a little bit out of focus for those of you just catching that cocktail. That was just him telling us he didn't appreciate us bashing the tree down like we did. It was, yeah, they're busy wrestling, or it could have been the fact that they're just wanting to have a bit of a play fight with one another, which is actually probably the case. These young guys have got a lot of energy to expend. Quite often play fights erupt at the most weird moments, while they're having a bath, while they're drinking, while they're eating. So coming back to the story about these guys, will eventually join up with probably an older bull elephant who's not going from breeding herd to see if there's any females ready for him. And it takes them for years out of the system. Now, older bull elephant suppress sexual maturity in young bull elephant. In a park in South Africa called the Pilanesberg National Park, they reintroduced young bull elephant and no old elephant. And what happened was chaos. Young bull elephant with no older mature bulls around turned into rogue elephant and damaged property, killed rhinoceros, were killing buffalo, and it stopped when they reintroduced some old Kruger bulls into the Pilanesberg to just reinforce some discipline. I'm going to try to get in front of these ellies. They are going down into some thick riverine bush. They're probably making their way to some water. Elephants will drink at least once a day. What do you think? Thick, yeah.
Yeah, they could come down this path, I guess, but their last track seemed to be that they were heading, yeah.
You know, once again, my predictions about what animals are going to do is absolutely turned on its head by the fact that they are their own animals and will do what they want to do when they want to do it. not when I want to do it. Ah, there we go. So when you're approaching elephants, it's never really a good idea to approach them directly or head on. They don't like it too much. You've got to stroke the egos of these elephants. As I mentioned a bit earlier, it's important to let them believe that they're still the biggest things in the bush. That way you avoid nasty confrontations. So eating humble pie around elephants is often one of the best ways of getting close to them, especially bull elephant. So you'll notice him now stretching into the trees, using his trunk to reach into a bush. He doesn't have to crash into the trees, even though he's fully capable of ripping that tree out by the roots. The trunk of his extends his reach by almost half of his body length. And allows him to feed to a height higher than that of a giraffe bull when he is fully mature. He will reach 5.5 meters into the air when he's mature. Once again, just pointing out how thick that skull is. If you have a look at the ear hole and the thickness of skull from the front of the head, their brain lies just behind their ear hole. Their ear hole is sort of in the middle of their brain. Their brain is about as big as a volleyball, maybe a little bit smaller than a volleyball. So a lot of skull. And that's for when they fight with one another. See how still he got there? So that stillness is typical of an elephant that's busy hearing something. Elephants are large enough to produce ultra low frequency noises, infrasound. Now, infrasound is below the level that we can hear, but is a very effective way of communicating through the bush. Research has shown that elephants will react to other elephants calling up to 10 kilometers away, roughly 6 miles away, by using these ultra low frequency noises. So don't worry, folks. It's just a young teenager just letting us know what he thinks about us. Once again, we didn't move, we didn't scream, and we didn't shout. We just want to let him know that we respect him. He is big. It's always best to tell them that every now and again. I think we're going to lose these two guys in this thick bush here. I think let's just go through one more of these. I'm not going to risk crashing through the bush here and damaging our car. They've allowed us a view of their life. a window into what they do every day. And I want to leave them with the same sense of peace that they've left us. Once again, impressed at the way that they just blend into the bush. There's one scraggly little bush between us and that elephant. Is about 15 meters in front of us, and you can hardly see him. You're welcome. Hello, Jeffrey. You asked a nice question. Do elephants have a distinct smell? And if they do have a distinct smell, is it a bad smell? And I have to say the answer to that question is yes, sometimes. Is it overwhelming? Can we smell these elephants from where we are? No, they are basically scentless, except for when they exhale out of their trunk. It's a very herby smell. Their breath has an incredibly herby smell. And I liken it to a herbal toothpaste. I know it sounds a bit weird, but but a herbal toothpaste has that quite herby smell, and that's what an elephant's breath smells like. Then when elephant bulls go into a state of must, elephant bulls have an adaptation where their testosterone levels increase up to 70%. And this allows mature bulls to vie with one another for the favors of a female. And it's an evolutionary adaptation which helps not all the male elephants in one particular area to converge at the same time. Particular elephant, or for that female. And so elephant only, they themselves, their bodies go into a heightened state a couple of times a year, depending on the elephant. Some elephant have it for up to 170 days a year. Other elephants have it in patches through the year. And this particular heightened state, this must condition that they go into, and this testosterone level increase makes all the glands in their body work overtime. And they produce a lot of smell at this particular point. A mutt's bull elephant, even to humans, the smell is sickly sweet, is what I like to liken it to. It's something that you can't really describe. It's a smell that is unmistakable once you've smelt it once, and lingers for many days on the path that particular bull elephant has been walking on. He basically just drips glandular secretions that have this smell. So the answer to your question is yes, but with a range statement that says sometimes. Only when they're in mutt or you're close enough or downwind to smell their breath do they smell. And then their smell is unmistakable. You can't miss it for anything but an elephant. it means a lot to me and it means a lot to the crew. Thank you very much for your feedback. It's quite special. So what I'm doing is I'm checking the sandy patches of this road. This is in the vector that he was last seen heading in. And leopard will quite often come onto roads and walk for a short period on the road before they take their own nose. And what I'm looking for here is just his tracks in the sand to see if he did come onto the road, which will confirm whether or not he actually in fact moved in this direction.
Right here, Steph. Or is that hyena?
Yeah, that's him, man. So I think it's worth showing you what we're talking about.
Perfect.
In front of us is the tracks of a leopard. I'm going to get out and show you with my finger. And this is exactly what we were looking for. This is confirmation that he came out onto the road. Tell me which track you're looking at. These ones here?
Yeah. If you go forward a little bit to the next one, it's a bit better.
This one here?
Yeah.
Or these here?
Yeah, those ones there, it's tricky.
But nevertheless, it's going to be difficult to show you the exact detail around these tracks just because the camera rig on the vehicles is static and it's quite solid. But this here is where he walked. They're sets of 2 tracks at a time. Half a meter apart from one another. Left hand side of his body, right hand side of his body. You can almost see how he was walking down the road very slowly. This is his front foot. This is his back foot. Leopard often imprint, which means that the front foot should be covered by the back foot. Now he's been walking down this road quite slowly. We can see both pads, which means that he's taking his time, giving us the slip. Obviously that bushbuck was a little bit big for him, and the squirrel that was calling in this area was calling at him. So there you go. Sometimes the interpretation of the newspaper is not as good as what you hope it can be. So we'll carry on going and we'll see if we can track him down. So after having his first go, my interpretation of this whole thing is after having his first go at that bushbuck, he decided that it was a little bit too much for him. He walked around the bushbuck and the nyala so that he avoided being seen and therefore them giving further alarm calls into the bush and announcing his presence, and he just moved after easier prey. He just went to go look for easier prey. So testimony again to how intelligent these animals are. Even at such a young age and with the experience that he's got, he's able to know when a fight is a little bit out of his weight category. His tracks are still on the road. We come into a junction in the road. We'll now see whether he turned left, right, or he went straight. So his tracks don't go straight. Doesn't mean anything. Generally they might go into the bush, he might go and smell a branch, he might go and smell a twig. It's always a good idea to check a little bit further down the road just to make sure that he hasn't just gone here to do something else. Check for tracks in the sand. Bush track down here. Let's go check the bush track. So it looks like it didn't come, or it didn't carry on going straight. So it looked like he either went straight into the bush or he turned down this road. Let's see. My gut feel is telling me, because we're not finding any tracks on the road, that he just went straight into the bush there. But let's go and have a look just a little bit further down this road for some tracks. And then we'll turn around and we'll carry on going straight, parallel to where he's walking. This road is quite difficult to see tracks on. It's covered in grass and there's not a lot of sand on it. Nevertheless, even though I don't have any tracks on this road, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go parallel to the direction that he was heading in. He's heading straight north. Leopard quite often will walk in a direction. In this particular case, he's walking north, and it doesn't matter what's in front of them, they'll carry on going north, even though they have slight detours and slight hunting, for instance, or marking some territory or going for a drink, but they'll carry on going north for a bit. And what I'm making my decision on is the fact that, knowing that that's the behavior of leopard, that he's going to carry on going north. And so what we're going to do is find roads that are going north and then crisscrossing east and west, cross that path to see if he comes out onto that road. Essentially, I'm giving away all my tricks over here. Another youngster. Beautiful coat pattern, that rusty color. Coming from our encounter in the bush a bit earlier, so please bear with us and accept our apology. What we have done is we found a road that is running east-west across where Quarantine's tracks were last coming, and both Scott and myself predict that if he's not still in the block on our left-hand side, then he's going to come out onto this road with the potential of heading towards Vuyatela Dam, which will be a focal point for a lot of animals going for a drink And for a leopard who's as hungry as what he is, that would be akin to us going to the supermarket. So we're going to check this road. It's not ideal for tracks, as you can see in front of me on the road there. The surface is quite hard. Not very good for showing the imprint of a light animal. Many of you would have noticed over the last days the infestation of flies that the Sabi Sands has experienced. Now, every year seems to bring on a new insect plague that happens at some point during the season. And this year, it just so happens to be these tiny little flies that are in their absolute thousands swarming around us. It's quite an effort not to continually just smack ourselves in the face and brush these flies off. I'm sure you've wondered why Scott and Brent haven't brushed flies off their faces. There he is there. We've managed to relocate him. So congratulations to the tracking 101. Trailing 101, I should say. So folks, in a perfect world, that's how easy it is. And believe me, I think it's beginner's luck mostly. So lying up in the shade, I presume it's the same leopard. Very difficult for me to tell at this angle, male from female. I can tell you that it's a young cat. It's in basically the same direction he was as we last saw Quarantine walking. He's got the same pale complexion. And with a little bit of study of the spot pattern, we'd probably be able to get a confirmation of ID.
Morning, Aubrey. Morning, folks. How are you doing?
Hello, everybody. How are you? Com check. Being covered in, I want to say thank you to our viewers once again. We've just confirmed using spot pattern analysis that this is Quarantine. So absolutely the same cat as we were having a look at just now. Found after a little bit of intuitive tracking and understanding the habits of these animals. I must say that we made it look a bit easier than what it actually was. And I do have to pat myself and Scott in the back there, so thank you very much. So we do have another vehicle in the sighting with us. Copy that, will be. Aubrey, come in for Steph. Aubrey, if you wouldn't mind taking over this lock, I'm going to be in it. I'm busy with the radio. If you wouldn't mind taking over the lock for me. Well, folks, what a fantastic way to end today's drive. It started off this morning in the mist. It's my first drive. It was beautiful. We decided to go and have a look at the hyena den to go and see what happened to the hyenas who got attacked by the wild dogs yesterday, or had a scrap of the wild dogs. I'm happy to report that they're all in very good condition. The cubs are fine. They were playing around the vehicle. They were suckling from their mothers. We had some interaction of other hyenas moving into the den site, and a bit of submissive behavior going on, which is very interesting to see. We got to see a hyena pasting on a piece of grass, which is very rare to see. It's uncommon to see. We then moved away from that area and came and gave some of our colleagues a hand finding Quarantine, young male leopard that we currently with. And in the middle of where we were standing, he burst out of the bush chasing a bushbuck with elephants standing around, nyala standing around. We then lost him for a while, took our time watching two young male elephant just feeding through the bush slowly, and then myself and Scott decided to put our brains to finding where Quarantine went, as he was quite clearly not with us at that moment. And as luck would have it, beginner's luck would have it, and I thank all the energy that you've been sending through to us over Twitter and emails, and it was that, I feel, that was the deciding factor. We've now bumped into Quarantine again, lying right next to the road, and we're going to end the show saying thank you very much from Scott and myself, and from Nikki in Final Control. Thank you very much for all your questions and your help with IDing this animal, and we're going to end the show with a nice look at the young male leopard, Quarantine, and we'll see you this afternoon. Thank you very much.